And you're listening to WUML Lowell. Our next guest live in the studio is Denise Sullivan. Good morning, Denise, and welcome to the program. Thank you for finding your way here through all the traffic from wherever you came from.
Newburyport.
Newburyport, okay. Okay. Denise is, well, why don't you tell us who you are?
Okay, my name's Denise Sullivan, and I am a primary therapist down at Amethyst Recovery Center in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I'm also an family addiction specialist and interventionist.
Okay.
And I'm here up in New England right now because we're opening a treatment center in Concord, New Hampshire. We became aware of the opioid crisis up here, and I'm originally from this area. And so they sent me up here to get the word out about our center. We're a quality treatment program, very successful. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a woman in long-term recovery myself. I'll have 41 years.
Congratulations, you're in good company.
And we've had heroin addiction in my family since 1965.
Whoa.
So I have really been around and watched what's happened, how it's escalated, and I want to get the word out there and kind of put a different spin on things, because there's a big stigma with heroin addiction, and a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. Families that have it, they want to hide it because they're ashamed or they're guilty, or everything that goes along with having a member of your family that's an addict. And what I would like to do is do more education to help families, because what happens, what I've seen since I've been working in this field, is that the addict will get into treatment, but the family thinks the problem's just going to go away because the addict got into treatment, and that's not the case. What happens is the whole family gets sick because they really don't know what to do. They get into survival mode, and they don't know how to cope with it.
Do family members unconsciously become then enablers?
Yes, unconsciously.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. This is a disease. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
a moral issue. And so a lot of families, they just don't know what to do. I saw it in my own family. I had a brother who was a heroin addict, and I watched his life. Once he became an addict, I just saw everything go downhill. It progressed, and it became very bad. My family didn't know what to do about it. My brother was in and out of prison for 25 years, mostly because of his addiction, all drug-related charges. And, he had a family, he had kids, and it was very devastating for the family to try and deal with what was going on, because we knew the person, and when the addict came out, it was a whole different person.
Really?
Yeah. And that's usually what happens, and I think a lot of the families that may be listening to this will say that their child or their spouse turned into a whole different person once they started to use.
That's true. By the way, folks, if you are listening or watching, you're listening to WUML Lowell, we are also capturing this interview live, and it'll be recorded. It will be made into a film, and we will boil it down to a half-hour special that'll be on LTC. If you go to LTC, you can go in. If you go into the website of LTC, you can look up. We have a whole lot of programs out there, and we're doing a lot on addiction and recovery. Since if the hurricane that's going to hit Florida in a little while, we're hitting us right now. Everybody be on the radio telling you about the hurricane. Well, we have a hurricane, it's called heroin, and it's sweeping the country. I have a question to ask you, and this is strictly my own opinion. We're calling now addiction a disease. You know, there is a point in any person's life, whether they're whatever they're doing, whether it's drugs or smoking or drinking or whatever it is, that there's a threshold. And it's a very, very subtle threshold where you pass from just being a casual sort of user, pick it up now and then, you know, and then you get to a point where some people, I have a son who reached this point himself, and he realized I'm at this threshold and decided to back off from it altogether. But then if you go beyond that threshold, you keep on using whatever it is you're using, whether it's alcohol or drugs, then the body takes control of your mind. And at that point, I say it is a disease. Because the body's taking control of your mind. You can't make a decision. You can't do the right thing, even though you may know the right thing. You're under the control of the substance that you're using. What's your opinion of that?
Well, I feel like it's a disease, for me anyway. I can say that I had this disease before I ever used any substance.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
How would you describe that?
I always remember having fear, doubt, and insecurity,
Really?
and always feeling different. I was very timid and shy and inside myself. And, you know, now that I'm in the field and I know about the family roles that we play in dysfunction, I can clearly see my place in the family as being the lost child, because that's how I felt before I ever picked up a drink or a drug.
Denise, you're fantastic. We have with us Denise Sullivan, and she's with an organization called Amethyst Recovery, and they do wonderful work. They're about to open an office in Concord, New Hampshire. They're primarily located down in
Port St. Lucie, Florida.
It's a really nice. I looked over at all your brochures of your facility, and it is really nice. It's a really first-class operation. Now, let's talk a little bit about your place in the family and the influence that. Were you, by chance, a middle child, or were you the
Yes.
last part of middle child? The middle child, well, that is so predictable in many ways. And as a middle child, you say you had, would you say you had, you were self-doubting, et cetera, you didn't have confidence in yourself?
Absolutely.
Did the other members of your family, either side of you, your siblings, reinforce that in some way?
No.
Or was it just
No,
the way it was?
I think it's just the way it was. It was my survival skills.
Mhm.
You know, I guess, I mean, this is all, now that I'm in the field, I know this. I look back and I can
You see it?
Yeah, when I've gone to my trainings and things on this, I can clearly see it, because I was one of four. And, you
One
know,
of four in your family?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can clearly see the hero, you know, is usually the older brother. Then there's the lost child. And then there's a mascot who they say puts the fun in the word dysfunction and kind of tries to make light of everything. And then there's a scapegoat. And the scapegoat is usually the addict.
Really?
Yeah, but luckily I was clean and sober, and I could deal with it. I didn't have to go into survival mode. I coped with it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So obviously, before Amethyst decided or made the decision to open up in Concord, you must have done some demographic studies of what the situation was in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, the New England area, et cetera. You draw from quite a broad area, don't you?
Mhm.
Down in Florida.
Yes, we're nationwide. We have clients from all over the country.
Really?
Yeah.
How many facilities do you have nationwide at the moment?
We only have the one in Port St. Lucie. We're opening the one in Concord, and we'll see how that goes. But we will draw people from other areas besides New England. But you know, a lot of people don't have the financially the money to be sending their kids off to Florida, you know, for treatment. Although in some ways it's a good idea. It's a good idea to get the addict away from where they're using and where the triggers are.
That's one of the biggest problems with relapse.
Right.
Is going back to the same old neighborhood, the same old friends, same old faces, same old.
Right, and
nonsense.
that's why I say the family needs to recover too. The family needs to become aware of some of these things. You know, we like to believe that we don't have to really do much work emotionally, that it's the addict's, you know, problem. But really, you know, without intentionally being that way, the families have their own problems. And, you know, it takes the whole family to be involved in the addict's recovery in order for it to be successful.
Well, do you then, when you're treating an individual, that addict is going through his own recovery, what means do you have, how do you reach out to other family members to get them involved in that recovery process?
Oh, well, when we have them, like, say I have a client come into my office for the first time, we immediately get in touch with the family, and we make them aware of how important it is for them to be involved in the recovery. And we have pretty good success with that. We keep in touch with the parents or the other family members all through the whole continuum of care, so that they know what's going on. And we have a family program that they come in. Some of them come down, you know, they have a family therapist work with them and with the addict or alcoholic. And that goes on all through their treatment. So,
that's great.
Yeah, it really is great. I've worked in other facilities around the country, and I find Amethyst to be the most nurturing. Our staff, they're master's level licensed clinicians. They're all in recovery.
Really?
Yeah, and we have a Christian track there. One of our counselors is a pastor, and he actually got a Christian track going in our facility. And, you know, when people first get sober, they have a hard time with the higher power. And so we, you know how important it is for somebody to believe that there is something outside themselves that is going to help them to stay sober. And so what happens, it's voluntary. It's called the Alpha Series. It's voluntary. And what we find happens is that some of the addicts will try it, and the other clients will see them doing well. And so they'll kind of get eased into the program, and they find that it's really, really helpful.
That's, you know, it's interesting you bring that up about the higher power, but that is a key point in the beginning of recovery. And I've encountered a few individuals, and they'll challenge you on it. Oh, there's no God, there's this higher power. Because, you know, I went to my first meeting here, a higher power, I thought they were talking about electric utility.
Right, and you know, it kind of helps people to find their own higher power.
Yes.
They just have to know that they're not their own higher power, because when you're an addict and you think that you have all the answers, you find out fast that you don't.
You have to get over yourself.
Yeah, you have to be humbled.
So, you've been in this work now, how many years in? What is your background? You said you did some advanced, obviously, training, et cetera, various institutions along the way to get to where you're at today.
Yeah, and we're all, well, actually, this is what my background is.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, so I actually had a hair salon in Newburyport for 25 years.
Really?
Yep, and there is a halfway house in Newburyport called the Link House, and I was on the board of directors there at one time. And so the guys that went through there, I would know them from meetings and things like that. And they would come by my shop and stop in and bring me a cup of coffee or a pastry or something. And so over the years, they would really want to come in and just chat. And it always helped me out to listen to them, because I could share my own experience, and it would keep me fresh in recovery myself.
Absolutely.
So I got, I always talked with them and all that. Well, anyway, over the years, people used to say to me, I really think you should get into counseling. And I would think to myself, no way. I make good money doing what I'm doing.
Because you need it, or you do it, or you do both.
Yeah. So anyway, when my son went to register at college, I went with him, and I have to tell you, one of the things about an alcoholic or an addict is that they're very impulsive. And I happen to be one of those people. And it can go both ways. It can help you or it can hurt you. In this case, it helped me. When I went up with him to register, there was a great man there. He was the Dean of Admissions, Charles Diggs, and he actually talked me into going back to school. And so I did, and I took to it like a duck took to water, because I've been doing it for 40 years anyway. As far as volunteering, pretty much my time with other addicts and alcoholics. I would go into the prisons or schools and talk. I would try to spread the message of hope wherever I went.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Denise, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it was a great experience. I went back as an older person and absolutely loved it. And I've been doing it ever since. And actually at one point, I've worked with every population. I've worked with, prisoners to celebrities. And, at one point, I actually taught. I taught for 3 years in a college, and so I have students in the field.
So were you teaching about addiction in
Yes,
college?
I
Oh, you were?
alcohol and drugs.
Really?
Teaching them to be counselors.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's very nice to be back here in New England because, I see people all over the place that I have taught as students. And then also to see some of the clients that I've had in the past, to see them being successful and working in the field themselves, it's just heartwarming to me. So this has been an unbelievable experience for me to come back here,
That's wonderful.
where I came from, to witness this.
We had a young man 2 years ago overdosed on heroin, and it was a front page news. It was a great long story. His name was Zachary Geis. He was a hockey player at Lowell High School. And one of the places he went to a couple of treatments, and one of the places he went was a place in Florida. I don't know if it was Antifest or not. But the other thing I wanted to comment on is the salon where you work at. Is that salon still in operation?
No, I sold it in 2008.
The reason I ask this, I work very closely with Billy's Barbershop, the Resource and Reclamation Center here. And one of the reasons that is so successful, and I'm sure the reason you were successful in your salon and what you were doing in counseling is it's a casual, no judgment zone. Everybody, it's like, well, the salon is like the ladies' locker room, like the barbershop is the men's locker room. You get them in the chair and you talk to them. All the guys down there themselves are graduates of various programs and recovered. But that's another key too, that you put your finger right on it, is the satisfaction you get out of giving back. Giving back. It's also the way you keep yourself healthy. I've been in recovery myself now 22 years. Thank God it wasn't a substance, but there are a lot of other things you can get into besides some of the things that we deal with.
Oh yeah, and usually what happens when people get sober, clean and sober, they will replace their addiction with another addiction. So that's something that people have to be really careful about.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've touched on that, can you give us some examples?
I can.
Okay.
Codependency is a perfect example. A lot of people will, give up alcohol or drugs, but they'll try to replace it with a relationship.
I get it.
And that's why they tell you in recovery not to make any big decisions your first year of sobriety.
Right.
Because you're not in a position to be making, life-changing decisions.
Right.
And so what happens is people become dependent on another person, thinking that that's going to be the answer to their, problem. And the other thing is, this is a disease of the emotions.
Yes.
And,
yes.
We just want to make ourselves feel better with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say it's, we have to take care of our own emotions. It's not something that we're going to find on the outside of us.
Right.
It's going to be from the inside out.
And that's a hard concept to get across to people too. I call mine the journey inward.
Mm-hmm.
And my disease was codependence.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a lot of the sub-addictions too that went along supporting that. In fact, I often, when I think of addiction, in fact, I actually made a diagram of it, like a pyramid, and at the top of it was codependence. And from that flowed everything else. And I often tell people, and you can agree with me or disagree or support, whatever you like, but I call it the graduate program of all the other A programs. Because when you get finished all that, okay, now I don't have that, but, and I consider codependence, and it can be codependent on anything, on people, it can be codependent on a substance too. But it's something you put between yourself and the healthy expression of an emotion. Well, that's a knockout point there. But, so what it is, and it's something you have to approach sort of slowly, because you tell people the first thing when they walk in their first day, well, you gotta learn how to give healthy expression to your emotions. What are you talking about? I got a problem with cocaine or alcohol or something else.
Yeah.
But again, if you think about this with ourselves, you know, there's an emotion you're experiencing that you don't know how quite to express. And so you mask it off by something, and it's that thing, whatever that thing is, that codependence, so that all codependence is a block to the healthy expression of emotion. Then that can lead to other things too. So I'll nullify it by a drink or a drug or something else. You know, it's interesting you mentioned the middle child, because my son, the one I was referring to, his addiction was cigarettes. But I don't know that he did anything else. I don't think he did. But he bought into the Joe Camel nonsense that went on back in the, the 90s. And he woke up one day and decided, I don't know really why I'm doing this. And he was at that threshold, and he turned back and gave it all up, and now he's healthy and happy and everything else. But, yeah, that's it. Tell us more about that.
About the codependency?
All about the emotional side of it, because a lot of people don't always see that, and if it's something you're unhappy about, you're dissatisfied about something you're unhappy on, maybe you're unhappy with yourself, maybe you're unhappy with your job or your spouse or something else. It can be any number of things that will drive you to one of these other kind of addictions.
Right, and that's why we educate people on it. A lot of people will come into treatment, and I even noticed this when I was teaching with some of my students, that they had never heard about codependency. And the more they listened, the more they realized that, oh my God, I'm codependent. And so a lot of the clients come in, and trust me, I just love working with my clients. It's like just watching miracles unfold before your eyes. And, they'll come in and they'll be in treatment for maybe a few weeks, and then they'll see some cute, guy or girl in treatment, and you'll see it all kind of start to unfold. And then
here's my ticket to heaven.
Right. So then you address it with the client, and it's really interesting, to watch them, to talk with them about it, and it's interesting to talk to the families about it, because the families, they're not aware of codependency, and here they are enabling their children or their spouse to continue using because of their own problems, like not being able to say no, not liking conflict, so...
always trying to please.
Yeah, people pleasing, yeah, and there's just so many different ways that codependency manifests itself in people.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people, I say that my addiction was codependency. But a lot of people hear that and they sort of chuckle, oh, that's nothing, David. Oh yeah, really? And there's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, because when these relationships don't work out, what do? You use.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the time is moving on. This has been wonderful. Denise, we want to have you back. Continue to tell us about your success stories, about what's happening in Concord, New Hampshire. You've been watching Thinking Out Loud for television and listening to Thinking Out Loud on the radio. And Denise Sullivan is a clinical outreach coordinator and an addiction specialist, and she's coming back to New England from that sunny Florida and going to do a lot of great things here. Denise, thank you very much for coming on the program.
City of streets of a place I call home. Along the Merrimack River, wind making me shiver, sending a chill up my spine, but I feel fine. All in the same boat, sisters and brothers, future generations setting sail from overseas. Destination low, the city of dreams.